1, a 2, a 1.
It's time for the Better Horses Radio Show. So let's saddle up and ride as we explore the Western way of life, horses and cows, family and friends, a relationship with the land, and a relationship with God. It's all here on Better Horses Radio. Now let's hit the trails with the Better Horses team.
And you are dialed into Better Horses Radio. I'm your host, Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And together we're going to talk about all the professionals coming on board as we talk about the equine industry and everything that we deal with every day with these horses. Merle, welcome aboard.
Well, thanks for having me back, Ed. It's always a pleasure to be here.
You know, going into the spring, we have to talk about vaccinations and all the deworming we do, but there's a lot that we should consider going into these horses because we got a lot of shows to go to. So let's talk about vaccinations for just a minute.
You know, and I've heard a little scuttle. Strangles is kind of making the rounds again. And I know sometimes we try to save money here or there as a horse owner, as a multiple horse owner. I appreciate that. But sometimes there's things we can't really skimp out on or shouldn't skimp out on. And I feel like maybe Strangles, especially if your horse is leaving your place, is one of them that you probably shouldn't skip.
So, Ed, we run boating barns. So when we talk to our boarders, and you and I both do the same thing, we make it mandatory for vaccinations. And some barns don't. They let the boarders do it. And there's some pros and cons on each. But as far as an owner goes, I believe that the owner has the right to say, we're doing all the vaccinations, get in your professional veterinarian coming in and just administer everything.
It's been, knock on wood, it's been years ago that I've been at a barn that had a Strangles outbreak. And if you've ever been at one that does, and the quarantine and the procedures, and it's a lot of work for, I think most quarantines, I think now is about 14 days, but for 14 days, you got to make sure nothing else gets infected. You have to keep those horses separate from the rest of the horses. It's a chore and a liability, as you said. I mean, like, horses get sick, and especially I think the young ones and the old ones are a lot more susceptible to higher risk with Strangles.
We can't push this subject enough, but I tell you what, we're going to have a lot about the equine industry, but the care and custody is always important. I'll tell you what, coming up on this show, we have professional horse trainer Alexis Losi. She's from Crown One Farms, and she's going to talk to us about the basics of dressage riding.
Ed, we're also visiting with David Peffer of DP's Farrier Service and the Missouri Association of Professional Farriers. He'll be sharing valuable insights from the farrier's perspective and what horse owners should know when it comes to hoof care.
And you know what? We talk a lot about horse shows coming out throughout the Midwest, and I am very pleased to have Melissa Street. She's the Director of Communications, and she's also the event marketing person for the Appaloosa Horse Club. And you know, we're going to talk all about the APHC and talk about all about the World Show, the Youth Show, and even the National Show.
Also join us on Better Horses today, Michael Bragdell, a world champion dressage competitor and professional trainer at Hilltop Farm. Michael is widely respected in the dressage world for his exceptional horsemanship, patient training style, and consistent success in the show ring.
And this is going to be a really great episode with a lot of professionals coming our way. Hey, I want to satisfy all our Better Cattle teams with our Mark Alpold going to talk to us all about the cattle industry. And Mark, let's talk about the weather.
Well, Ed, wore out 2 rain gauges here in the last couple of weeks. My. I know about April showers bringing May flowers, but boy, this rain event, these events that we've seen, and flooding across the Tennessee-Ohio Valley, and continuing through that, our folks down in the southeast here, what a way to start April here and the spring season. Keeping an eye on that weather is certainly a factor in the livestock trade. Muddy feedlots, certainly no fun either for those folks that are out there in feedlot country. So again, and all this happening with, we saw late week, the futures, again, like the commodities and the stock market, taking a big dive here late in the week. You know, I had one writer put it in perspective. You remember musical chairs. He said, well, futures traders aren't seeking a chair when the music stops. They simply leave the party. And that's what this writer believes is taking place. He says those participants that have been your absolute best friends here through the winter and early spring may not be any longer. Outside market action begins to influence producers and scratching heads and trying to figure out, what the plan will be. In fact, he concludes by saying most likely, especially looking at feeder cattle, most likely some will finally put a pencil to paper to actually see what the risk is that they've already assumed. And whether we've seen the top or not, cattlemen, these feeder cattle owners own the most expensive inventory in history in a time frame of a lot of economic volatility due, of course, tariffs. You can kind of start there, and the consumer demand and the overall economy as well. So, again, it like the heavy rain, boy, heavy pressure here in this trade as well. Taking a look at the June live cattle, we think a big number, 192.5, needs to hold in here, or there's a big gap down to 185, 186 in our view. So first things first, let's watch that June contract, 192.5. Not much likelihood of the market moving any higher, especially back above that 205 to level that we saw here a week ago or so ago. Feeder cattle, August feeders, a lot more sellers that wanted to get out here as we started this week. So we need to go down, we think, 265, 267 now looks back in sight. Don't like to say those numbers, but that certainly is what we look like. And then we look ahead on the calendar, and what a sale maybe next week to be watching. The Superior Livestock first really major sale of the year is their Gulf Coast Classic in the South, and we'll see how that auction unfolds about this time next week. I want to conclude by looking at a thing we call the VIX. You might have heard that, our listeners and viewers, the VIX or Fear Index, as it's often called. We watch that quite a bit here, and especially when it gets over 20 or 25. I'd like to see a Fear Index 15, 16, 17. That represents relative calm in the market. Well, we know it's been anything but calm, and way above 25. In fact, late last week it soared above 45. That's a level rarely seen. In fact, only 3 times we tracked that in the last 20 years has it been higher than 45 as far as an index in here. The analysts suggest that these kind of high levels are seldom sustained. That might be the good news. Computer algorithms kick in and magnifies any move taking place, and that takes human emotions even higher. And make no mistake, emotions are running high no matter what commodity or trade you're talking about. But we also hearing and believing that there are, especially on Wall Street, cooler heads that have been on the sidelines. And the slide that we've seen on Wall Street is really taking place on really daily low trade volume. So if there's any silver lining in there, it could be that these are just numbers, and it doesn't necessarily mean that these stocks, even though their value has gone down, it's gone down kind of like holidays in the grain trade. When there's Christmas, a New Year's holiday, and very few traders, the market can make a big move, and you think, oh, what's going on? Well, it's just a lot of sellers, for example, and there aren't a lot of traders to bounce on the other side. So you want to take all these kind of gyrations with a grain of salt, and hopefully we see a rebound sooner than later. Well, a little long here to start this week, but as always, above it all, we wish everyone a profitable week ahead.
Appreciate that, Mark, and everything you do as far as the Better Cattle series goes. Well, Merle, let's get this show started. We're going to have more Better Horses coming your way. I'm your host, Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
And we're going to be right back right after these messages.
Now's the time to prepare for the world's largest horse show, the Pinto World Championship. This 14-day event begins June 7th, starting with our youth weekend through June 22nd, and caters to all riding levels and ages. With over $1 million in cash and prizes, there are no qualifications required to enter. Held in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Pinto World Championship caters to all types of equines. With over 700 classes, the Pinto Show welcomes a variety of breeds. It's a family environment with healthy competition. For more information, check out pintoworld.com.
Get quality you can stand on. Hoof Grip is the proprietary formula that provides shock absorption for your animals with no ice buildup, slipping, cracking, or sogginess, making it the safest, most comfortable, and maintenance-free flooring on the market. Hoof Grip installs quickly and easily over existing surfaces, is easy to clean, and withstands extreme heat or cold. From vet offices to barns, wash racks to trailers and more. Visit hoofgrip.com to find a dealer in your area today.
We're here for the hardworking, the resilient. We're for the people who measure their days by what needs to get done, not by hours. Where kids learn responsibility at a young age and generations work side by side. Where work doesn't pause for holidays or bad weather. It just gets harder. Where value and hard work means more than the clothes you wear. We're Kleinschmidt's Western Store, Higginsville, Missouri.
Routine dental examination and treatments are essential for high-quality horse care. To prevent potential problems, a horse's mouth should be examined at least once a year. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins, Equine Field Service Veterinarian at Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. We can examine the mouth and provide a treatment plan to meet the needs of each client and their horse. Visit us at ksvhc.org, the Veterinary Health Center, to discover, to teach, to heal.
Hey, it's Alex Gold from Max Motors in Belton with their huge year-end heavy-duty sale. Every new 2024 Ram 2500 in stock is 20% off MSRP. New 2024 Jeep Grand Cherokee up to $13,000 off MSRP. Stock number S240367. Must finance with dealer lender. Offer expires 1/2/25. And if you're looking for the max trade-in values in the Midwest, it's Max Motors, just a short drive to Belton. Max Motors, the easiest place to buy a car, maxmotors.com.
Welcome back to Better Horses Radio. We're so glad you joined us as we talk all about the equine industry. And today we just got done with a lesson. And with me today, I have the professional horse trainer, Alexis Losey from Crown One Farms here in Missouri. And Alexis, welcome to Better Horses.
Hi, Ed. How's it going?
Great. As a matter of fact, one of the things that I think a lot of people would like to understand is, one, what is dressage? What's the meaning of dressage? And what type of discipline do you normally teach, and how beneficial it is to the horse?
So dressage is what I like to, describe it as is just suppling the horse to carry its weight better. The horse is moving over its back. We do a routine in an arena. We have a specific test in dressage that tests the horse's skill, walk, trot, canter, how balanced is the horse, how lovely are the movements, soft, roundness. There should be no tension. It should look very easy and pleasant to watch.
What I found fascinating is all disciplines are migrating to dressage training, and you're getting pulled in through lots of other disciplines. Western dressage is a big thing versus English dressage. Talk to me on some of the things that you like to teach and how beneficial it is as far as the horse is concerned, as far as getting to the next level.
I'm teaching a lot of Western dressage riders lately, a bunch of my clients who are migrating from other disciplines, and they're like, oh, Western dressage is easy. I don't have to put on an English saddle, don't have to wear the breeches. Let's try Western. So that's a really great option for a lot of people. The main thing that I like to start out with if you're going to Western dressage is first I want to see if your horse understands how to yield the bit. I don't care what kind of bit you use in the horse's mouth, whether it be a snaffle bit or a shank bit. Does your horse understand how, when you lift up the reins, does the horse yield its jaw to the connection? Then does your horse go forward when you add leg and not hollow its back, become stiff in the connection? So we first work a lot on roundness, yielding the body a little bit back and forth. Does your horse go forward politely and softly? Those are the first things that I work on with a new student. And then we work on, can your horse maybe do like a rubber band? Can it go a little forward? Can it go a little back while it's staying round, while it's pushing? And so, then we run into all the problems of stiffness. A horse always has a better side, a worse side. So really we're just doing gymnastics to make the horse equal on both sides of the body.
It is precision type riding. You mentioned Western dressage. And, one of the things that I found fascinating is that you can go on the internet and look at WDAA, which is the Western dressage, lots of levels. What is the difference between the English and the Western as far as patterns and as far as training goes?
Yes, there are differences, but they're not as, huge as some people think. Obviously, there's different tack. English tack is the dressage saddle. You have a snaffle bridle until you get it to the upper levels. Then you can use a double bridle. Western, obviously, you're using a Western saddle. You can still use a snaffle bit, but you can also use a shank bit. The Western dressage doesn't matter. You can use two hands with a snaffle bridle or a shank bit in Western dressage. So those are the two tack differences. The patterns are, they're very similar. They use the same arena. They use the same letters in the dressage arena. The tests for Western dressage are more tailored to Western horses. So Western horses are typically quarter horses. They have smaller movements. The movements are more compact sometimes, where in English dressage, the movements are spread out a little bit, so the horse has more time, because they're bigger horses, typically bigger movements. So the horse has more time to do a turn, a bend, a loop. So they're similar, but they gear the Western dressage towards your stock horses.
Yeah, you bring up a good point. Warm bloods versus quarter horses. As quarter horses and as much as we train, Western Pleasure, for example, get off the bit, get off the reins. They like it loop. You like a better connection with the horse, and is that familiar with the Western dressage? Is that what they like to see?
Yeah. So in dressage, whether it's English or Western, if I'm using a snaffle bit, the horse has to have a connection with the bit so I can have instant communication with the mouth. It is not a tight, tense, aggressive connection. Should be soft, yielding. But I don't want a big droopy rein in Western dressage, because now it takes me way too long to communicate anything with the horse's mouth. So that would be a difference between your English Pleasure, long loopy reins, long headset. We want, in Western dressage, the poll is the highest point. We have a nice, polite connection. I can quickly communicate with my horse. And then when you go to a shank bit in Western dressage, yeah, there can be a little loop, but not the huge, loopy. That's not what they want to see in Western dressage.
And if you're just joining us, we're talking to Alexis Losey from Crown One Farms here in mid-Missouri. And I like the idea of a lot of disciplines going to the basics of dressage. You have a tendency to teach. It is amazing how much of a flop sweat you can get into these horses for as little you're doing. And the exercising is amazing. What are some of the tips you can give our listeners out there that they can be doing if they're in an open arena? What should they be concentrating on just to get into that discipline?
Well, no matter what, if it's English dressage or Western dressage, let's say you're in an arena, transitions, right? That's, if you can't go from a walk to a trot and then back to a walk without any disruption, with the head not going up, we want it to look very smooth. So stay on a 20-meter circle and just go up and down, walk, trot, walk, trot. It sounds so boring, but it's really hard. Right. And then once you've mastered, okay, my horse can stay round, my horse is on the bit, going walk and trot, and I'm keeping the same tempo, or my horse is not speeding up, slowing down, speeding up, then you can go on to walk, trot, canter, trot, walk, right? So again, you're teaching your horse to do these very basic movements, but they have to be soft, round, prompt, but keeping the tempo that you dictate.
I like the idea that you like to keep the pole at the same level at every type of those transitions. And I think that's a goal. That's the one thing that you like to teach, and it's a lot of ways to push. What other things in the dressage world that you have gone into? I think a lot of reining trainers are going into dressage now just to get the basics done. And it's really, you can go to the most highest level. Can you walk people through on the type of levels that you can go to and how to get started?
Are you talking about Western dressage or English dressage?
Let's talk both.
So you can go, I think there's up to level 5 in Western dressage, and I don't know how that correlates into English dressage, if that's more like a 3rd or 4th level. I know there's flying lead changes at level 5 in Western dressage. So it's not as high in Western dressage as your Grand Prix in English dressage. That's okay. Maybe someday it will get there. But at this point, getting our Western dressage horses to be at super collected canter, where we can do canter half pass, we can do flying lead changes. That would be the ideal, right? And then you can take that horse and you probably could do a lovely reining pattern. You could probably do a lovely ranch riding class with that horse, right? Those are our goals with our Western dressage horses. You can take that horse and do any event you want to.
You know, we're even catching riders in barrel racing gaining into this discipline,
Sure.
which is really exciting. Okay, you're listening to Alexis Losi from Crown One Farms. Alexis, I want to thank you for joining me here at Better Horses. We appreciate it and love to have you come back and also be a part of our TV show.
Great. Thanks, Ed. Appreciate it.
All right, everyone. Thank you for staying with us. We have more Better Horses coming your way right after these messages. I'm your host, Ed Adams, and we'll be right back.
Now's the time to prepare for the world's largest horse show, the Pinto World Championship. This 14-day event begins June 7th, starting with our youth weekend through June 22nd, and caters to all riding levels and ages. With over $1 million in cash and prizes, there are no qualifications required to enter. Held in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Pinto World Championship caters to all types of equines. With over 700 classes, the Pinto Show welcomes a variety of breeds. It's a family environment with healthy competition. For more information, check out pintoworld.com.
Get quality you can stand on. Hoof Grip is the proprietary formula that provides shock absorption for your animals with no ice buildup, slipping, cracking, or sogginess, making it the safest, most comfortable, and maintenance-free flooring on the market. Hoof Grip installs quickly and easily over existing surfaces, is easy to clean, and withstands extreme heat or cold. From vet offices to barns, wash racks to trailers and more. Visit hoofgrip.com to find a dealer in your area today.
We're here for the hardworking, the resilient. We're for the people who measure their days by what needs to get done, not by hours. Where kids learn responsibility at a young age and generations work side by side. Where work doesn't pause for holidays or bad weather. It just gets harder. Where value and hard work means more than the clothes you wear. We're Kleinschmidt's Western Store, Higginsville, Missouri.
Routine dental examination and treatments are essential for high-quality horse care. To prevent potential problems, a horse's mouth should be examined at least once a year. I'm Dr. Chris Blevins, Equine Field Service Veterinarian at Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. We can examine the mouth and provide a treatment plan to meet the needs of each client and their horse. Visit us at ksvhc.org, the Veterinary Health Center, to discover, to teach, to heal.
And welcome back to Better Horses Radio. We're so glad you joined us. Merle, this is going to be one great show that we're rolling right along with.
Yeah, it is. It's always a good time here at Better Horses.
You know, and I want to tell you this next segment is going to be really important because I love shows, and I think until you really gather into them, they're really important. But let's talk about a lot of shows coming in. And in this next segment, we have the Director of Marketing. She's also the event coordinator, and she's really getting familiar with the Appaloosa breed. Her name is Melissa Street, and I want to bring her on board just to talk about this breed. Melissa Street, welcome to Better Horses Radio.
Thank you guys for having me on.
And, you know, this is very important because you have a special event that's coming on board. And I want to get this right out of the box into our interview of the 2025 National Appaloosa Show. And the location is going to be in the Oklahoma City Fairgrounds right there. And the show dates are going to be June 26th to July 3rd. Melissa, this is going to be the biggest event that you have coming in the next few months. Can you tell us a little bit about it?
For sure. You know, one of the things that's great about the show, it is the oldest running youth show in the U.S. We have a lot of history that the Appaloosa breed brings to the shows, as well as the passion of the membership. For 2024, we had over 10,000 entries at our national show and Youth World Show. Those all come from the 60 regional clubs that we have. Those are our state affiliates. They do a great job of promoting the breed and encouraging members to come from near and far to show there in Oklahoma City. Kind of interesting this year, some of the things that we have. Lee Bennett Performance Horses has stepped up for the Youth World Show to cover the cattle charges for those kids to try those cattle
Nice.
classes out. And we have another sponsor, the Spotted Bull Farm, that they've stepped up and they're covering the over fences equipment charges for the youth fees as well. Really focusing on giving the youth the best opportunity that they can possibly have at our show.
Well, Melissa, I know some of our Better Horses listeners may not be familiar with what's the difference between an Appaloosa show versus a regular horse show that they'd go to, like an open show or maybe a different breed horse show. Can you tell us some of the differences that the Appaloosas offer?
For sure. So for our national show, our Youth World Show, they have to be registered Appaloosas. They have to make sure that the horse is in the exhibitor's names. All of the rules and regulations on ownership and registration can be found if you go to appaloosa.com/national show and kind of read through there. A fun fact is there's no qualifying for our Youth World Show and there's no qualifying for our national show. So it's based solely on the breed of the horse. And if you want to try a class or you're proficient in a class, come be a part of both.
And if you're joining us, we're talking to Melissa Street, and we're talking about the 2025 National and Youth World Show that's going to take place on June 26th to July 3rd in the Oklahoma City Fairgrounds. And Melissa, talk to me about the events and the speed classes that you have, or the all types of different events that are going to be at this show.
We'll have all different types of disciplines. We'll have cattle classes. We have the tie down. We have the breakaway. Something that is kind of fun to the Appaloosa breed is we have steer daubing. And I always joke and say that I call it cowboy jousting. So the rider has a stick or a broom handle with a rag on the end that has some paint, and the cattle in the chute have a circle painted on the side, and they are timed on how soon they can get a dab of paint in the middle of that circle. So our first day will start out with cattle classes, which is kind of fun. The rest of the week, we'll roll through all of the disciplines, whether it's Western pleasure, horsemanship, halter, showmanship. We have over fence classes as well. Those are for youth, and then we have the adult non-pro. We have all of the basic classes, and then we also have our speed classes. Those are a little bit different. They are barrels and poles, and we have keyhole. We call them some different names, and we actually run their head-to-head. And so there's two patterns set up in the arena. The Nez Perce State race is what is referred to as poles, and so there are two horses running, and the winner of that runoff places ahead of the other. And then the Camas Prairie Stump race is fluently called the barrels. And again, they run head to head, and we have a runoff to see where you're going to be seated in a bracket. And then we go through the bracket just like we just all finished up with March Madness.
Well, Melissa, I know you've kind of jumped in kind of head first and kind of getting a real quick education on everything. But I've had some friends go, real good friends go, and they were really impressed with how the ease of online entering. I mean, everything was super easy to get into. You guys posted approximate times of classes and entries, and they were just really impressed with the, for lack of a better term, the digitalization of the World Show. Can you speak a little bit about that for us?
You can. Definitely thank your friends for noticing that, because we have an IT department and we have some show staff that they take a lot of pride in setting up all of that. We have online entries, we have online stall reservations. If you are not comfortable with a computer, you can call the office. We have some papers that can be filled out. We make sure it's easy for anyone to do. For the schedule, most everyone has a full-time job, and we show horses because we enjoy it and it's a hobby. And so we do the best that we can with putting the schedule out as early as we can and have the estimated times. The days that you're joining us, might be your vacation days off work, or you have to schedule some meetings around, whatever you're doing if you work remote. So we definitely do as much work on the front end as we do during the show of making sure that all of the exhibitors can plan accordingly and make it a simple, kind of seamless process for them.
When you work a youth program, you're talking about very different ages here. And so is the process of learning this is going to be the Youth World Show that's going to be June 26th or July 3rd. So I want to ask you a question about the youth. How qualifying do they have to be as far as age that they have to enter into these events, or are there?
Literally from as early on as their parents or grandparents want to throw them up on that horse. We have Lead Line, which is free at our show. All the kids will walk away with some sort of prizes. And we have classes that start out. We have some new classes this year, actually, the Walk Trot Ranch Trail and Walk Trot Ranch Rail Pleasure for 10 and under. So that's how we divide up our classes. We have 10 and under, we have 13 and under, and we have 14 to 18.
And we're talking to Melissa Street, who's the Director of Communications for the National Appaloosa Show. It's also, you can check out this information at appaloosa.com. We're talking about the 2025 National Youth World Show, June 26th through July 3rd. Melissa, before we let you go, there's also another show, the 2025 World Appaloosa Show, not to be confusing, that's going to be taking place in October 24th to November 1st, and that's in Fort Worth, Texas. And as you mentioned before in this interview, there's no qualifying for this show either. Is that correct?
Well, we have no qualifying for our Walk Trot non-pro adult Walk Trot classes, but there is qualifying for some of the classes at the World Show in the fall. All of the qualifying can be found on our website. Again, appaloosa.com/World Show. There are the qualifying there. It's kind of a happy mix between qualifying classes and non-qualifying.
That's why we ask the questions. That's why I want to make sure we get out there. So that clears it up for the 2025 World Appaloosa Show. And for our listeners, that's in Fort Worth, Texas. And that's going to be October 24th through November 1st. Not to be confused with the 2025 National Youth World Show that's going to be June 26th to July 3rd in Oklahoma City. Melissa, I want to thank you for joining us here on Better Horses throughout the entire time of these shows. We'd love for you to come back, walk us through how everything's going, and get everybody listening to the Appaloosas and getting to the website as much as we can.
Sounds great. And Ed, the part to remember about the national show, since we don't have qualifying, that is the easiest way to qualify for our world show in the fall, is to come in attendance and participate in the national show.
Very good. Actually, very good point. All right, Melissa, thank you for joining us, and we look forward to having you come back.
Thank you.
All right, everybody. Hey, stay with us. We're going to have more Better Horses coming your way right after these messages.
Now's the time to prepare for the world's largest horse show, the Pinto World Championship. This 14-day event begins June 7th, starting with our youth weekend through June 22nd, and caters to all riding levels and ages. With over $1 million in cash and prizes, there are no qualifications required to enter. Held in Tulsa, Oklahoma, the Pinto World Championship caters to all types of equines. With over 700 classes, the Pinto Show welcomes a variety of breeds. It's a family environment with healthy competition. For more information, check out pintoworld.com.
Hi, I'm Dr. Dylan Luter, a specialist in equine performance medicine at the Kansas State University Veterinary Health Center. Our new service focuses on lameness diagnosis, advanced imaging, physical therapy, and regenerative medicine for horses with injuries preventing them from performing at their best. We can treat a variety of conditions and design a customized rehabilitation plan to meet the needs of each client and their horse. Visit us at ksvhc.org, the Veterinary Health Center, to discover, to teach, to heal.
At Heritage Tractor, we're driven by more than just the nuts and bolts of our John Deere tractors. We're fueled by a commitment to you. It's about tracking down that elusive part, providing industry-leading equipment that won't break the bank, and ensuring your equipment is up and running. Because your livelihood depends on it, our livelihood depends on it. The three little words we live by, here for you, aren't just words. They're a promise. Heritage Tractor, here for you, here for a lifetime.
Established in 1956, the Pinto Horse Association of America was formed to welcome all types of equines and maintain their show records and pedigrees. PTHA currently has over 88,000 members with 157,000 registered pintos. There are currently 3 separate registries: the Color Registry, the Solid Registry, and the Long Ear Registry. We welcome all levels of competition within a family-friendly environment. Become a member, register, and add value to your horse. For more information, check out the website pintoworld.com.
Get quality you can stand on. Hoof Grip is the proprietary formula that provides shock absorption for your animals with no ice buildup, slipping, cracking, or sogginess, making it the safest, most comfortable, and maintenance-free flooring on the market. Hoof Grip installs quickly and easily over existing surfaces, is easy to clean, and withstands extreme heat or cold. From vet offices to barns, wash racks to trailers and more. Visit hoofgrip.com to find a dealer in your area today.
We're here for the hardworking, the resilient. We're for the people who measure their days by what needs to get done, not by hours. Where kids learn responsibility at a young age and generations work side by side. Where work doesn't pause for holidays or bad weather. It just gets harder. Where value and hard work means more than the clothes you wear. We're Kleinschmidt's Western Store, Higginsville, Missouri.
It's time to go with United Mosquito and Fly Control's premier fly system for fly control in your barn, providing relief for horses from the stress of fighting flies, and also makes the barn more pleasant for everyone in the barn. Easy, effective, and safe. With United Mosquito and Fly Control, we provide a full service. You as the barn owner don't have to do anything. We go everywhere and take care of everything with our friendly fast service. Call today at 913-558-3814 or email Paul at unitedmosquito.com.
Welcome back to Better Horses Radio. So glad you joined us. Sitting at Silver Tooth Stables, located in Missouri. I am pleased to have us having an ongoing conversation all about the equine industry. And you know what? No matter where you go in agriculture, no matter what you deal with horses, I always have the same conversation. Is all the guys who are looking for career changes always ask the question, wonder what it's like to be a farrier. So with that in mind, I happen to have one of our professionals coming on board. His name is David Peffer, and he's with DP's Farrier Service. He's a graduate at Oklahoma State Horseshoeing School. He's from Pleasant Hill, Missouri, and he's a certified American Farriers Association. And I am pleased to have him talk to us about the Missouri Association of Professional Farriers. David, welcome to Better Horses.
Hey, how's it going, Ed?
Good. And you know what? I got to ask you the question. You've been a farrier for a long time, being a professional. Let's talk about that. What is it like to be we look at farriers and we think, what a great job. You're an entrepreneur. You have your own rig right here. We happen to have your own young son come to the barn. What a great life. And with that in mind, is it as great as I'm building it up to be, or is it as challenging as everybody doesn't know what it's like?
Both. It is great working for yourself. It's funny, everyone says, oh, you work on your own, you're self-employed, you can make your own schedule. Well, yes and no. The horses still have to get done. You still have to work around your client's schedules. But you can do as many or as little horses as you want. Just depends on what kind of life you want to have.
And let's talk about the skill set that it takes. As I mentioned, you came from Oklahoma State Horseshoeing School. There's a lot of techniques here. There's a lot of education and certification that has to go on. So just to get to your level, and we'll talk about journeymen here in a minute, but what kind of schooling does it take?
Most people go to a farrier school. They range from 2-week courses to a 24-week course. And there's, I believe, one school in the U.S. that has a 2-year school. Most of the schools teach you enough to be dangerous. And the best thing you can do is, if you go to school, is to get out and find some journeyman farriers to ride with. And hopefully they teach you what not to do and definitely teach you what to do.
And I think that is important on balancing. Let's talk a little bit about how much importance we put into farriers in this country versus other countries. You've traveled, you've talked to other peoples in other countries. What's the difference in the type of relationships that horse owners have with farriers, for example, like in the UK, versus the United States?
In England, farriers are held to a very high regard. It's actually a federal crime to shoe horses without being certified, and it's a multi-year mandatory apprenticeship that they have to go through to get certified to be a farrier. And they're treated very well. They have, their royal dinners with the England royalties they have. The farriers are always invited and are expected to come. And it's a lot different in the United States. Fortunately, it is the oldest free trade in the world. And that is also unfortunate because anyone can go be a farrier, or actually more like a horseshoer. Anyone can go to the hardware store and get the horseshoer BME kit and go think they know what they're doing and butcher horses. And it's really unfortunate. I do wish we had some credentials that, where you had to go through certain steps to be a farrier, but also there's a place for all the guys. There's places that they can't afford to have a true professional come out and do their horses. They just need something on the horse's feet to get them onto the next deal or go chase cows or whatever. Yeah, I mean, here it's just a free trade where you can do whatever you want, and that's good and bad.
I think you brought up a good point, and let's ask the question here. What should somebody who owns a horse, and whether you're sitting in Montana, Arizona, Oklahoma, or Missouri, and I'll throw me into that, what should I have the basics of knowing without being a professional, without being schooling, that I should have learning to take off a shoe? What should be the basics that I know without hurting my horse?
I mean, number one for all horse owners is know how to pick up your horse's feet and get them to pick up their feet and do it safely. Because one of the biggest things is, we come out and Fluffy's arguing with us, not being very polite, and it's the only time he gets his feet messed with. So, check the tire pressure on your car and check your horse's feet. I mean, every time you ride, every day, mess with your horse's feet. A lot of my clients that are gone a lot riding, and I teach them how to pull a shoe because it happens. Just like back to the car tires blow, horses pull shoes. It's just part of life. It sucks, but just is what it is. It's no one's fault. And I teach some of my clients how to pull a shoe. So that way, when that shoe, does get twisted or is almost off and the horse is hobbling or, limping or something, they can get that shoe off, get the foot either in a soft ride boot or wrap it and duct tape until they can get to someone that can nail the shoe back on.
Yeah, that's perfect. So when you go into the spring or go into different type of climate conditions, what are the things that we can do to keep that hoof healthy? What are the things that we can do between farriers? I know it's between 4 to 6 weeks. You like to see a horse get reshod. What are some of the things we can do between that time to keep those hoofs healthy?
Like I said before, cleaning the feet out. Clean them out, brush them, check for bacteria, thrush, any problems. Make sure there's not a rock embedded in the frog. Anything that can be harmful or something that's not supposed to be there. And a huge thing is dry. Like horses' feet are so much healthier too dry than too wet. And I remember when I first started, I had people tell me like, oh, we let the water trough overfill so they can stand in the mud and get some moisture in their feet. And I fell right into it. I was like, okay, sounds great. You put lotion on your hands so they're not hard. Well, then you get working, and a working man's hands has calluses. They're hard, they're cracked, they're busted, and a horse lives on his feet. They shouldn't be wet. They shouldn't be soft. They need to be hard. It's unfortunate for us because it makes our job 10 times harder trying to trim a rock, middle of the summertime, but it's way better on the feet. The feet hold together. They always look nicer. The shoes stay on better. And I'd say the biggest thing is clean the feet out. If you see any kind of bacteria, treat it with, I personally like Copper Tox. There's a newer product called Groom's Hand. It's awesome. I'm really loving it. They've sent me some product to try. But Copper Tox, Groom's Hand, two of my favorite products. And squirt that on the horse's feet. Make sure there's no bacteria in there. And keep your horse's feet dry.
There you go. And if you're just joining us, we're talking to David Peffer, and he's with DP's Farrier Service. He's a graduate of Oklahoma State University, and he's also certified at the American Farriers Association. Whenever we're dealing with lameness at a horse, and I had this said, so you can correct me if it's wrong information, but 70% of most lameness, it's in the hoof. Do you recommend that if I have lameness, should I call my farrier first? Should I call my vet first? What's your opinion as a farrier?
It completely depends on the lameness. If it's something in the leg, if it's a cut, clearly that's out of our reach. And first thing, I'll go back to it, check your horse's foot. I don't know how many times I get a phone call, oh, Fluffy's limping, David, can you get out here? And anymore with technology, I tell them, well, send me a picture. When I first started shooting, didn't have that option. But now everyone, has an awesome camera on their phone. clean the foot out, send me a picture. And 80% of the time, they pull out a big old rock. And they text me, oh, false alarm, had a rock in it. So, yeah, I mean, and a lot of times, like an abscess, I mean, that's definitely in our wheelhouse. I think every farrier should be able to know how to check for an abscess, and horse owners too. Know how to check a pulse to see if there's a pulse in the foot, and if there's heat, if there's swelling, and to see if there's a problem, and how to identify a problem.
That's exactly right. Okay, going back to the career, if I wanted to be a farrier, what is a journeyman and what is a journeyman's test?
There's American Farrier Association has multiple certification levels. The first step is being a certified farrier. And there's 3 parts to the test. There's a written, and then a shoe board, and a live shoeing test. The live shoeing test is a pair of feet with keg shoes or store-bought shoes, and you have a time limit, and every portion gets judged. So you trim your feet, that gets scored. You fit your shoe, that gets scored. You nail your shoe on and finish, that gets scored. And you have to meet a certain percentage, just like a test in school, to pass. And everyone thinks, oh, I shoe horses for a living, I can go shoe a pair of feet, no problem. And I've been to those tests, and I've tested at those tests, or as far as been a tester. And I'll tell you, you get under the gun, and things change. You're not in your backyard shoeing the horse you've been shoeing for 5 years. And then the written test is pretty much everything in that leg from the knee and hock down. Different styles of shoeing, different lamenesses, different conformation, just how to identify different issues. That's all in the written test. And again, you have to score a certain percentage. And the shoe board is a list of elements that you could use in your everyday shoeing, and you have to be able to apply them to so many different shoes appropriately and correctly according to this test. So then once you get past that level, you need to be going for your journeyman. And the journeyman is very similar test, just harder. I mean, obviously. I mean, journeyman's a pretty higher level in America on a certified farrier, and not many guys get it. So same thing, 3 portions to the test. The live shoeing is a full horse, full set, all handmade plain stamped shoes at the horse in 2 hours. And that is a feat. There is no margin for error. If you have one hiccup, you're done. You're out. So you have to practice, and you have to have the best go you can on the day. The written test is anatomy, everything in the horse from the hip and shoulder down. The muscles, tendons, ligaments, joints, bones, all of it. The conformation is a lot more in-depth. Lameness evaluation is a lot more in-depth. Gait faults, different gaits of horses. You just have to know all about the horse. And it's really, really cool test. And then there's a bar shoe test where you get a foot or a pattern, and you have to measure it, cut a piece of steel, build a bar shoe right then in 30 minutes or 45. I got my journeyman a few years ago, so I don't remember what the time limit is. And it has to fit that pattern perfectly. There's no margin for error, and it's all criteria based for the AFA to test you.
Even the best farriers find this to be challenging.
Oh, absolutely. And, of course, once you got to that level and completed it, then, you go do that again. It's like, oh, that wasn't so bad. But it's just like anything, like until you're at that level, it is hard. And the worst thing is I see guys all the time, they go get their journeyman and they totally fall off the ladder. They just go shoe all their horses. They're tired, they're wore out, and they don't care about holding that level. There's only a few guys that I see that hold that level every day. And I have all the respect in the world for them.
That's unbelievable. Okay, everyone, we're talking to David Peffer. He's with DP's Farrier Service, and he's also located in Pleasant Hill, Missouri. David, thanks for joining us, and we appreciate you, and hopefully you come back.
Absolutely.
The more shows we do, the more I realize we don't know enough about these horses.
And I think being a good horseman also means being a good student and learning something, like a takeaway from every situation, maybe good, maybe bad, but I think always continually learning and trying to get better and have better horses.
And we get these professionals are coming on board. If you want to listen to this radio show again, I invite you to the Better Horses Radio podcast. Wherever you get your podcast, it's on Apple, it's on Spotify, Foxfire, Chrome, Echo, and even on YouTube.
And Ed, hot off the press is our Better Horses edition of our newspaper. And it's out and it's in local feed stores. It also can come directly to your mail. And it's full of great tips and tricks for horses and riders alike.
And our production team is out on the road and they're on to our television show, which is airing on RFD, the Cowboy Channel, and streaming on Equus TV. If you want to catch it even as an encore, check out our YouTube channel.
I couldn't quit the show without having a special thanks go out to the team behind the scenes.
There you go.
Our radio producer, Brianna Johnson, who always works extra hard on our end and trying to make us sound good. And our TV producer, Kelly Creech, and of course, all of our great sponsors.
That wraps it up for this week, but we also want to thank our listeners, and we want you to all be good buckaroos and buckarettes. Mind those mom and dads and be brave, but don't take any chances out there. Until next time, I'm Ed Adams.
And I'm Merle Arbo.
Happy trails, and always ride for the brand.